Let me ask you something. When was the last time you caught yourself doing something you knew was irrational? Maybe you stayed in a relationship long after it was toxic. Maybe you kept scrolling at 2 a.m., even though you promised yourself you'd sleep early. Or maybe you followed the crowd into an opinion you didn't even believe, just because it was easier than standing alone. You're not stupid. You know better. And yet, you did it anyway. Why? Because being intelligent has never guaranteed wisdom. And in fact, history shows us that some of the most intelligent, educated, and articulate people were the very ones who built the most foolish systems, made the gravest mistakes, and sometimes led entire civilizations into collapse. So today we're going to confront a disturbing truth. Why even intelligent people fall into stupidity and how human nature itself sets traps for us all. The illusion of knowing. We live in an age where information is everywhere. A single Google search gives us what entire libraries once guarded. We carry the thoughts of Plato, Nietzsche, Bonhoeffer, and Machiavelli in our pockets, accessible within seconds. And yet, are we truly wiser than the ancients? Plato warned us of this very problem over 2,000 years ago in his allegory of the cave. People sit chained in darkness, watching shadows dance on the wall, mistaking them for reality. They think they know, but what they see is only the faintest outline of truth. Doesn't that sound familiar? Today we scroll through endless feeds, headlines, and hot takes, mistaking exposure to information for understanding. But here's the trap. Intelligence convinces us that because we understand the words, we understand the truth. This is the first foolishness of intelligence, the illusion of knowing. We confuse knowledge for wisdom, data for depth, and opinion for truth. And in doing so, we stay chained to the shadows, believing we see the world clearly when in reality we are blinded. Bonhoeffer's warning, the power of stupidity. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the German theologian imprisoned and executed by the Nazis, wrote about what he called the theory of stupidity. His point was terrifyingly simple. Stupidity is not merely a lack of intelligence. It is a social and moral disease that spreads when people surrender their thinking to the group. Bonhoeffer observed that intelligent, educated citizens, professors, businessmen, politicians, could become shockingly foolish when swept up in collective ideology. They stopped questioning, they stopped resisting, they surrendered their judgment to the mob. Think about it. Some of the brightest minds of the 20th century didn't just tolerate the Nazi regime, they justified it, rationalized it, even helped design it. This is the second foolishness of intelligence. When intelligence bends to serve power instead of truth. And here's the uncomfortable part. You and I are not immune. Every time we join in on outrage because it's trending, every time we repeat a narrative because it feels safe, every time we stay silent because the group demands it, we risk becoming what Bonhoeffer feared most, intelligent fools. Machiavelli and the rise of clever fools. Niccolo Machiavelli, the political strategist, wrote that rulers often rise to power not because they are wise, but because they are cunning. Cleverness can outpace wisdom in the short term. Lies, manipulation, and deceit can win battles that truth cannot. And so we find ourselves ruled, time and time again, by clever fools. Leaders who know how to appear intelligent, but whose choices hollow out society from within. But here's the bitter twist. Machiavelli didn't just describe rulers. He described us. Each of us has the capacity to manipulate, to deceive, to choose clever shortcuts instead of painful truths. And often, intelligence arms us with better excuses, sharper lies, and more convincing justifications for our worst impulses. That's the third foolishness of intelligence. The smarter you are, the better you become at rationalizing your own errors. The psychology of self-deception. Modern psychology confirms what the philosophers always suspected. Humans are masters of self-deception. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows that those with the least competence often overestimate themselves, believing they are far more capable than they are. But it doesn't end there. Even the highly intelligent fall into self-deception. In fact, intelligence often makes it worse. A study in 2013 found that highly intelligent people are more likely to suffer from cognitive biases because they use their intellect not to overcome them, but to defend them. In other words, the smarter you are, the better you are at lying to yourself. You build castles of logic on foundations of sand. You become an architect of your own illusions. The hidden enemy, our desire for comfort. At the heart of all this lies a truth we don't like to admit. We prefer comfort over truth. Nietzsche once said, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. And so we choose comforting lies over painful realities. We convince ourselves that we are in control when we are not. We believe that progress is inevitable, that leaders are competent, that we are rational. But underneath, we know human beings are fragile, biased, emotional creatures. The greatest foolishness of intelligence is not ignorance, it's arrogance. The belief that we are the exception, that we see clearly while others are blind. The mirror. So now comes the uncomfortable question, what about you? What about me? When was the last time you clung to a belief, not because it was true, but because it was comforting? When was the last time you ignored evidence because it threatened your identity? When was the last time you justified something you knew was wrong, just because it was easier? This is where philosophy begins, not in pointing fingers at others, but in holding the mirror to ourselves. Plato's cave isn't just about society, it's about you. Nietzsche's critique of illusions isn't just about the masses, it's about you. Bonhoeffer's warning about stupidity wasn't just about Nazi Germany, it's about now. The lingering question. So where does that leave us? If even the intelligent fall into foolishness, if even civilizations of brilliance collapse under their own cleverness, what hope do we have? The answer is not more information. It's not more cleverness. It's not even more intelligence. What we need is courage. The courage to see the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. The courage to stand against the crowd when the crowd is wrong. The courage to admit our own blindness, our own bias, our own foolishness. Because wisdom begins where arrogance ends, and true freedom begins the moment we choose truth over comfort. So the next time you feel certain, the next time you feel superior, the next time you are tempted to point to the stupidity of others, ask yourself, am I too chained to the shadows? Because the real danger has never been that others are stupid. The real danger is that we are, and we don't even know it. If this spoke to something inside you, if you felt the sting of recognition, then you are exactly where you need to be. This channel exists to challenge, to disturb, and to awaken. So if you're ready to see the world differently, subscribe now, and let's drift deeper into the questions that truly matter.